Donald Trump and his transition team continue to compromise national security and make this country unsafe because rather than sign the required transition memos that are required, mandated by law set by Congress, to ensure a smooth handoff between administrations so there's no gap, that nothing falls in the outfield between two outfielders, that our national security is protected, Donald Trump would rather continue to take tens of millions of dollars of dark money from secret donors to use to his ends and to use the leftover after he gets into office for whatever purpose he wants without having to disclose it, rather than keep our country safe. I'm Michael Popak. You're on the Legal AF YouTube channel, and I'm at the intersection of law, politics, and the Presidential Transition Act of 1963. This is no joke, folks. I'm going to read to you from a letter that was just written by Elizabeth Warren to the entity that is responsible for enforcing that the Presidential Records Act of 1963 is complied with for good reason, and as it was amended. A letter written to Robin Carnahan of the General Services Administration about the failure of the Trump administration, or the Trump-Vance Transition Team, Inc., to do its job. Let's talk about it. It is required under the Presidential Transition Act of 1963, as amended, that there be a filing of the ethics code and a description of how everyone in the potential cabinet and on the team of the president, including the president, will resolve its conflicts. That was supposed to be filed on the GSA website by October 1st. That did not happen. Instead, Donald Trump is picking some of the most conflicted, ethically conflicted, unfit people to serve in his cabinet. And we, as the people, don't know exactly how those ethics issues are playing out because there's no plan for it and it's not properly disclosed. Almost every one of the people that Donald Trump has picked, from Howard Lutnick, his Commerce Secretary, to the Interior Secretary, Burgum, to the people like Dr. Oz, to others, almost every one of them has a conflict of interest, including Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Well, let's just take Donald Trump for a minute. Donald Trump owns a cryptocurrency company. Donald Trump is just announced that Truth Social is going to use a cryptocurrency payment system. Howard Lutnick, his Commerce Secretary, is tied, no pun intended, to Tether, a stable coin platform for which his company serves as custodian, and he's getting deeper into business with them. Of course, the Commerce Secretary is part of the ethical problem here. Donald Trump is going to be regulating in areas related to cryptocurrency that's going to be benefiting Donald Trump and his family, right? Do you see where this is going? Burgum, who's going to be the Interior Secretary, apparently continues to lobby the very entities that he will be regulating. Susie Wiles, who's the White House Chief of Staff incoming, is so entangled in lobby and ethical problems, I'm going to have to do an entire new hot take just on Susie Wiles trying to extricate herself. But the issue is they're not extricating themselves. Now, why is it important for the presidential transition teams to have already entered into their MOUs, their memorandum of understandings, with the GSA, the General Services Administration? Because it makes you, me, and the American people safer. Listen to my words, those that are in his administration or plan to be. You are compromising national security. And if you think this is just a hypothetical, an elitist on the East Coast coming up with some hypothetical scheme, it's already been shown that the lack of proper transition to George W. Bush contributed to 9/11 and his response to 9/11, and they improved the act after that. Some people in the administration for Donald Trump, or the wannabes, should know better than that. One of the things that you get if you play in the sandbox nicely and you don't pee in it is that you get access to top secret classified briefings so that there's a smooth overlap, a shingling and transition. Donald Trump's people are not and have not been properly briefed by the Biden administration because they haven't signed their MOU to allow them to get this top secret clearance. We know Donald Trump doesn't automatically have top secret clearance. We saw what happened at Mar-a-Lago with the documents there. He only gets it and the others in his administration, the counterparts for the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the National Intelligence Director, the CIA, the FBI, the Attorney General, they only speak to their counterparts once these memos are in place, and that briefing hasn't happened because Donald Trump doesn't want it to happen, because he's not yet ready to give up on the kleptocracy, on the stealing, on the secret money, on the secret donations. I mean, I'm almost breathless about this. It's that important. Everybody keeps writing me, Popok, do something on the Presidential Transition Act of 1963. You got it. You're at it. Now, let me read to you from the letter that Elizabeth Warren, the senator, she often just perfectly gets it. The tonality of it, the substance of it. Let me read to you from the most critical aspects of it. The first paragraph, first page. President-elect Donald Trump is undermining his own ability to effectively manage national security emergencies, urgent public health and safety threats, and corruption risk as he prepares to take office in January. Right? What if another pandemic hits the day after he gets in? That could happen. What if a cyber attack happens the day after he gets in? What if something worse happens on domestic soil the day after he gets in? And he hasn't been briefed because they want to raise tens of millions of dollars to line their pockets and use it for other purposes rather than do a proper transition with the Biden administration. Peaceful transfer of power, right? He was supposed to commit to a peaceful transfer of power. He said, basically, only if I win. Well, he won. Where is the peaceful transfer of power? It's just words until you enter into the required agreements. And your communications among each other is not cyber secure because you don't have the government level of encryption and security and monitoring of your communications. And you're like, well, we don't want to let the Biden administration in like a mole. That was Tulsi Gabbard, who's going to be a nominee for the national intelligence community. Yeah, I thought you have to have natural intelligence in order to have that position. We don't want a mole to get in. What about having a proper transition so that if on day one something bad happens, you are prepared? For those of you in the cabinet or candidate wannabes that are in some sort of organizations that think your technology is sufficient to protect from hackers, I beg to differ. I know that Elon Musk and others who are in technology, among Donald Trump, who can barely get out a social media post without assistance, are telling him, don't worry, chief, we'll use our IT departments. They're good. Okay. How many times do the Iranians and the Chinese and the Koreans, the North Koreans have to hack you, right? And hack your servers or your Verizon accounts before that a lie is put to that in misplaced self-confidence. Let's continue with the letter from Senator Warren. The Trump-Vance 2025 transition has refused to sign the memorandum of understanding with the outgoing Biden administration. There are normally mundane agreements that since their creation, no prior president-elect has refused to sign. All Americans share an interest in presidential administrations being prepared to handle the basic governance of the executive branch agencies, public health and safety threats, and national security emergencies. Under the Presidential Transition Enhancement Act, that was the amendment, presidential candidates are required to develop and publicly release their ethics plan. See, that's the key. That's it right there. They don't want to comply with the ethics plan. That's why Republicans against Trump put up on their social media feed, this is the most corrupt president of the United States in history. And he continues to be that way. And everybody that's in his organization or has joined with him, including former Democrats, now Republicans, right? The blood is on your hands, that you're allowing this to happen, that you're an enabler for his worst fascist instincts to compromise American security, and many of you know better. Let's continue. The Trump transition's ethics plans should have been published on the General Service Administration's website on October 1st. Trump has not done that. Let's continue. By page 3, by refusing to cooperate with the outgoing administration, the Trump transition cannot adequately prepare to govern responsibly. Let me repeat that. If they don't sign the agreements, they can't be prepared to govern responsibly. As a practical matter, within the MOUs, the Trump team will be delayed in accessing vital national security information and briefings with national security personnel. I know they think they can rely on Tulsi Gabbard, but I don't think so. I beg to differ. The transition will also be delayed in entering federal agencies and accessing secure IT infrastructure to communicate with those agencies. And the FBI cannot begin critical background checks of candidates to give them national security roles. That's the thing. Donald Trump doesn't want the FBI to do the investigation. He hasn't begun dismantling the FBI. He's going to use he's going to use his own people. Linda McMahon and his presidential other chief and Don Jr. are going to do the background checks, as we've already seen. And Trump's just going to order everybody to get a national security clearance, whether they deserve it or not. And that includes Tulsi Gabbard, who many people believe is compromised and is a Russian asset, to be the head of our national intelligence. They're going to have a lot of explaining to do at the Senate confirmation hearings. In effect, continues in Senator Warren's letter, President-elect Trump is undermining his administration's ability to manage urgent national security threats, health and safety threats, and serious conflicts of interest starting on day one of his presidency. He doesn't care about the conflicts of interest. He himself is tied up in a knot with them. So is his Commerce Secretary. So is his Education Cabinet member. So is his Treasury Secretary. So is his Chief of Staff. So is Elon Musk. Should I go on? Congress has stressed that with a transfer of power comes potential vulnerability. If the new president and his new administration are not ready to govern on the first day in office, our nation's adversaries may well see and take advantage of the situation. Our enemies are watching. On page 4, she continues, the risk is not hypothetical. For example, the 9/11 Commission found that the delayed transition following the contested 2000 election, right, that extended out for several months, hampered the preparation of George W. Bush's national security team and may have contributed to the 9/11 attack. Think about that. Attention, cabinet nominees. 9/11 may have been caused in part by picking the date when we were the most vulnerable because there was a gap in presidential transition. And now you are participating in that particular vulnerability. Congratulations. Meanwhile, close coordination between the Bush administration and the incoming Obama administration helped their national security teams to ensure the safety of Obama's 2009 inauguration from a possible terrorist attack. See, Donald Trump thinks he's immune. He thinks he's the man of steel. He thinks that nobody wants to try to assassinate him. We already know the Iranians have a plot in place to try to assassinate Donald Trump. He's already almost had his head blown off twice. Doesn't he think it'd be a good idea to be coordinating with the outgoing Biden administration, who's responsible for security efforts in and around the Capitol on the day of the inauguration? You would think so, right? You might be stopping here going, Popok, you got to be out of your mind that you think that they're doing this. They can't be doing this. They're doing it, right? They're doing it, and we're calling it out here on Legal AF and on the Midas Touch Network. This isn't because I'm nitpicking, at the intersection of law, politics, and presidential transition. Oh, he missed the MOU. Oh, he didn't sign the rider. Well, the exhibit was missing a page. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about national security. He's sacrificing your and my personal safety, national security interests, and his own safety in order to avoid the ethics code, avoid the ethics plan disclosure, solve the ethics problems, because he can't solve them for almost all of the people in his cabinet. They'd have to divest themselves of everything. He's going to let these people run their businesses. You think the Commerce Secretary is going to sell out his company? I don't think so. I'm sure he's going to run his company from the perch of being the Commerce Secretary. You think Elon Musk is going to divest himself of anything? And he's got $3 billion worth of contracts with the government and 17 separate contracts. You think he's selling out? I don't think so. You think Donald Trump is going to put anything in a blind trust to be run by whom? Don Jr.? I don't think so. So he won't solve his ethics problems, and he wants to collect $30 or $40 or $50 million to use So he doesn't have to use the government money and sign these deals. And then whatever's left over, he's going to funnel it back to PACs that are going to be used to support MAGA candidates. Or he'll give it as a gift to whoever tries to take his place when he's done with the 4-year term. I'm calling it out. This is like a bat signal. I want everybody out there who follows us regularly on Legal AF, here, podcast, and all of that, to reach out to your senators. There's 2, and your Congress people. There's two senators for every state. Reach out to your local congressperson. Tell them that you're tired, that you're angry, and that you're not going to take it anymore. And that this is not what people voted for. Not when it was the slimmest of margins, when 7 million Democrats sat home because they didn't like the way it was transitioned from Biden to Kamala Harris. It was more of a Kamala Harris Democrat loss than a Trump win. And now they think they got a mandate, or they got a landslide that they're going to shove down my throat and your throat and in other body parts as they take over this country. Tell them no. Make it politically expensive for people. Exact a political price. That's the best we can do at this point. There has to be outrage. You have to have blunt force outrage at this point. That's where we're at. We tanked the Gates nomination. Got to do the same thing for the rest of these. And then I'll leave it on this. In about, on December the 2nd. So on December the 2nd, Donald Trump's lawyers, who are on their way into the Department of Justice at top spots, including Todd Blanche, are going to write a paper to a filing with Judge Merchan in the New York hush money cover-up case where Donald Trump has a 34 felony count conviction hanging over his neck like the sword of Damocles. They are going to argue, based on prior filings, that they are in compliance with the Presidential Transition Act and that it provides some sort of immunity from sentencing for Donald Trump. I want the Manhattan DA to make sure they put in their papers that at least through till today, Donald Trump has blown through all of his required deadlines starting in September and October, has not properly transitioned pursuant to the mandated law of Congress, is in violation of those laws, and then has the balls, the temerity, the chutzpah, New York legal term, to tell the judge that one of the things that makes it so he can't sentence Donald Trump is the Presidential Transition Act of 1963 that I've just spent 17 minutes telling you that he's not in compliance with, further compromising national security and health. God forbid we have a pandemic that starts the day when he arrives. What's he going to do? Hand out cans of Lysol with instructions on how to ingest it? Take your sun lamp and stick it where the sun don't shine. That ought to solve the problem. And he's got a bunch of MAGA, virus-denying, pandemic-denying, science-denying people in all the key health positions and science positions coming in. Woe be us in another pandemic, right? We're going to continue to follow it all. Thanks for being here. Legal AF, Michael Popak here. Follow me on Blue Sky. That's where I do all my business now, at MS Popak. Otherwise, I'll see you back here, Legal AF, the podcast, and on our YouTube channel. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.